Coming up on Wavelength, some major achievements in LCRA efforts to clean up and protect the Colorado. And you'll hear some of the discussion surrounding approval of that employee pay raise. Also, LCRA will be building an archaeological center at Kingsland, and we'll take you to one of our electric division's biggest success stories.
From the Lower Colorado River Authority, this is Wavelength.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Wavelength. One major focus in the 1990s for LCRA will be to step up efforts to clean up the Colorado River. We're very serious about this, and at the December board meeting, a big step was taken. LCRA has become the first authority in the state to enact an ordinance to control non-point pollution, the pollution that rain washes off the land into our water supplies. The non-point pollution ordinance approved by the board will apply Travis watershed in Travis County and goes into effect February 1st. It requires that new construction include controls that remove from rainwater 70 to 90% of three major types of non-point pollution: solids, which are dirt, sand, and debris; phosphorus, which comes from fertilizers and animal waste; and oil grease, which comes from your car and mine. Reaction to the ordinance?
This ordinance is a victory for everybody concerned. The Highland Lakes are just the crown jewels of Texas. They're fundamental to the attractiveness of Central to Austin's economy, absolutely fundamental to our enjoyment of life out on the lakes and to our economy, and we need to protect them. We need to keep them going right. Runoff pollution is going to be a major problem in the future. This ordinance is a major first step toward addressing it. It's just wonderful to have it going into place.
Developers that at least I represent are approaching the ordinance in a positive way. They know it will cost a little more to develop, but LCRA has done some cost studies, and at this point the costs are not unreasonable with respect to the impact on a particular development.
Signify another big success for LCRA toward a clean Colorado. The city of Marble Falls has agreed to go to this type system rather than discharge into Lake Marble Falls.
We think recyclable use is the way to go, but that's a philosophical difference. That's not the politics of the time. I think our alternative that we've with David Freeman and LCRA is probably the best thing at this point in time, and we'll just take and go.
Marble Falls will have the plans for their land application system designed by August, and LCRA has agreed to spend up to $450,000 to help them buy the property they will need for the project.
2.5 years that I've been on the board.
One of the biggest discussions at the December board meeting occurred when General Manager David Freeman stepped to the podium to ask the board for that $600 a year across-the-board employee pay raise. The board agreed employees have done a lot of good hard work and that a pay raise might be in order. But with a rate case coming up, there were some concerns about the timing. Freeman pressed the issue, citing feedback he has been getting, he says, in his roundtable meetings with employees.
That all of the lip services that they are getting from me and from others about caring about them cannot break through the feeling, and it's not just in the last 2 or 3 years. This is an organization where the rank and file have not gotten the attention that they deserve over the years. And we can't eliminate the morale problems, but I can tell you that it is my definite belief that this measure will be appreciated by the rank and file of the employees. And the fact that everyone is being treated alike will have an enormous positive impact on the aspect of teamwork and togetherness in this organization. It is, in a way, unfortunate that it happens to coincide with Christmas, and I can understand that connotation, but this is not viewed as a bonus by anyone. It is viewed that we have done a lot of real good work together in the last 6 months, made a bunch of money. The customers are getting most of it, but the employees ought to be recognized. There's a company that their general manager is more interested in the customer and the legislature and the board than the employees. And that is not true, but there is no way to persuade the employees, the board and the general manager really care about them as individuals without some tangible monetary expression. And this is more than a token, but it is not a huge sum of money, and it will be incorporated in their pay classifications.
The board approved the measure, and word of the raise spread quickly.
I was surprised. I mean, I've been here a long time, and I was pleasantly surprised.
I thought it was great. I think it's a real motivational tool, and I'm excited about it.
I was quite pleased with it. It was a concrete proof that management does care about the employees here.
In other board action, LCRA may soon build its first wastewater treatment plant near Camp Swift in Bastrop County. The board approved the project contingent upon the funding coming from Bastrop County government.
The board approved the second phase of water rate increases. The increases will affect municipalities, power plants, and rice growers, and will bring LCRA closer to charging the actual cost of providing and delivering water.
The board agreed to lease the Texas Park Department 785 acres of land at Lake Bastrop. Some of the land will build a new $2 million game warden training center from a $3 million state park.
Jim Garrison, new board chairman. Garrison, who represents Burnett County, had been vice chairman and has been on the board for 2.5 years. The new vice chairman is Burton Latoul, who represents Matagorda County. Raymond Barker of Kerr County will again be board secretary.
Meet LCRA's newest board member. He is Neil Norris of Kingsland. We caught up with Norris on his first visit to the general office and asked for his the agency.
Positive, I'd say. What I've seen of LCRA in Highland Lakes area has been, in my limited exposure there on a full-time basis the last 4 years, I feel that LCRA has done wonders.
Norris was appointed December 18th by Governor Bill Clements, and he will replace Ken Dixon.
You know, our TC Ferguson power plant is a tremendous success story. You want to see some initiative on the part of employees? You want to see some serious ingenuity at Ferguson. Ferguson was built in 1904 for $40 million, and that made it the lowest cost plant per kilowatt ever built in the country at that time. It was built inexpensively and was designed to run non-stop. So about 6 years ago, when it got assigned stop-and-go utility-type duty, major expensive breakdowns began occurring, like to the main pump that sends water to the boiler to make steam.
We probably were averaging going down at least twice a year for major repairs on the pump. And it would usually cost in the neighborhood of $40,000 to $50,000 to repair the pump.
We had to do modifications not only to this pump, we had to do modifications to the boiler, we had to do modifications to the water treating facilities.
And the list goes on and on. That in some instances were a first in the industry, designed and installed by Ferguson employees of their own initiative, saving hundreds of thousands of dollars in improved efficiencies. Example, this reverse osmosis unit and related modifications were put in to improve the process for purifying the water needed to make steam.
Before our modification, we could produce 135,000 gallons of demineralized water. Now we're producing 1.5 to 1.6 million gallons.
And the difference in the cost?
From a chemical cost, just chemical cost alone, of approximately $8 per thousand to somewhere around $1 a thousand.
The water purification process at Ferguson is so good, they have not had to clean the inside of their boiler for 12 years. The industry average for cleaning is every 3 years at a minimum cost of $60,000.
All different areas, all different aspects of the plant have been modified, but it's been done in-house. These people have relied on their own resourcefulness, their own ingenuity to come up with these ideas that have enabled us to operate the way we do today as opposed to the way we were designed to operate 15 years ago.
Because of all the modifications, Ferguson is becoming a totally reliable utility player in the LCRA system. And because it can start up and shut down daily if necessary, it has saved LCRA ratepayers an estimated $800,000 in fuel cost alone since May.
Deputy General Manager Mark Rose, who has been at LCRA now for 2.5 years, pretty much has his priorities set for the new year. And in a recent interview, we asked him first how he would appraise the work being done by LCRA employees.
Across the board, I think staff has done a tremendous job. That's part of what the compensation issue before the board was, of giving back some of that reward to the employees was all about.
You had indicated the need to improve communication a while back when we talked. How are we doing?
There's been some progress there. There's a lot of effort going into communication. Big question as to whether or not we're communicating effectively. As I look forward to the new year, I see a couple of major initiatives, but they're different kind of initiatives. We seem to do great when we have a big project like Bill Fayette, or what we're going to do long term with Cummins Creek, or what we're going to do with Powell Bend over the long term, or the non-point source pollution ordinance. I mean, we MSA, putting in a big computer system. Okay, we can take those kind of challenges and in the end translate them into pretty good victories. Where we often fall down is just in the daily communication with each other and letting folks know what's going on. We need a whole bunch of little victories this next year. And in my opinion, that's one of the reasons that the management team, from the general manager to me to the executive directors, has settled out on really focusing on the human resource side, the employee side of LCRA for this next year. Let's fix the issues in the compensation plan that have been out there and have been bugging folks for years. And by that I mean the inequities that are in pay that are in there, folks who it's taking too long to get to the midpoint, all the things that may not seem as grand as passing an ordinance or building a power plant, but they're just as important.
Now a late-breaking story. During that very cold weather we had over Christmas, LCRA's customers used a record amount of electricity. 3 new all-time peaks were set over a 7-day period. The first occurred the morning of December the 16th of 1,687 megawatts. But the following weekend, with single-digit temperatures, LCRA set almost unbelievable new peaks of 1,903 megawatts Friday morning and 1,930 megawatts the next day.
Saturday morning, we were sitting there with no reserves left in the whole state, no spinning reserves. Houston, San Antonio, LCRA shedding load and trying to keep the power system intact, and we succeeded. It was an interesting experience for everyone concerned, to say the least, and one we could have done without, if I could put it that way. But we made it, and we're going to be having a lessons learned exercise as a result, because we now have essentially a new ball game, a situation where the wintertime poses a load on our system simultaneously with other systems that we need to be prepared for, and it just means a stronger conservation program, more attention to maintenance in the fall and spring if we can possibly get it all done, and just moving ahead and being sure that we invest in the maintenance of these units and the transmission lines, because it's obvious that reliable electric service is a very demanding task. But let me say again that I'm proud of the performance of the LCRA employees in this Christmas weekend, and we'll probably be having some repeat performances before the winter's over.
This scenic overlook high above Lake LBJ is a very popular spot for people traveling through the Texas Hill Country, and it apparently has been that way for thousands of years. For this place on the Colorado River appears to have been home throughout the ages for at least 17 distinct cultural groups dating back to 10,000 years ago.
This one is very significant, not only because of the village site, like I mentioned, but also because of the fact that we have a common thread of occupation going from 1880s, when there was a pioneer cabin up on the top of the hill, all the way back to 10,000 years ago. Most sites you don't have that. You'll have one or two groups with large gaps in between. Here we can reconstruct the whole climatic and cultural history going all the way back for Central Texas prehistory.
Excavations at the site began over a year ago, and so far some 100,000 artifacts have been recovered, including spear tips of Ice Age hunters and weapons used by Indians 650 years ago. At the December meeting, the board approved $200,000 to turn the site into an educational center with 4 life-size interpretive displays and opportunities for teachers, students, and other volunteers to help with excavations in the future.
This area here under these beautiful oak trees is where we like to put the mammoth exhibit. Back here on this rock wall that rises up back to where the pioneer cabin is, way back on top and in the brush, we'd like to put our mammoth with a couple of figures on top throwing rocks down, and a couple of hunters dressed in skins with spears attacking the animal right here.
Woolridge says this will be the only facility of its kind in the country, and work on the project will begin in March.
LCRA employees, as usual, demonstrated their spirit of giving during the holiday season, and at FPP, one employee's idea sparked a massive community effort for needy children.
Speaking with different people, we found that people were just kind of eking by, a lot of people. There wasn't maybe enough money to keep our roof over the head and food on the table, but there wasn't going to be any frills this year. And we thought no child should be without a toy on Christmas.
These are some of the people who organized the LCRA employees' Toys for Tots campaign. Memos were sent out seeking volunteers, ads were placed in local newspapers, families who needed help had to be located. A $500 donation from Silver Shields kicked off the drive. Pancakes and sausage. This benefit supper was organized by the committee with the cooperation of the McDonald's restaurant in LaGrange. There were some familiar faces in the crowd, and employees who volunteered to work say it was all worth the effort.
And I think it's real important because I can't imagine Christmas without helping somebody out.
Joe Caridi says that with all of the donated toys and cash, they will be able to reach 290 children in Columbus, Giddings, Smithville, and LaGrange. The toys will be distributed through local community organizations.
And what a Christmas present for the Capital Area Food Bank. The LCRA United Charities Fund from FPP, Ferguson, and Austin presented a $15,000 1990 GMC van to the food bank. They also presented a $4,000 check accepted by Mayor Pro Tem Sally Shipman that will help pay some of the food bank's electric bills. Food bank officials say this was one of the largest single donations ever in their history.
And there are always a lot of Santa Clauses around at Christmas time, but certainly none better looking than this one. With his fluffy white beard, custom boots, a silver buckle, and a cowboy hat, board member Roy Bandy played a terrific Santa at this year's General Office Kitty Party. Some kids naturally were a bit shy, but others zestfully delivered their Christmas wish list, along with some well-deserved hugs for Santa Bandy. Well, that's it for this edition of Wavelength. We'll look forward to seeing you next time.